How can I 27F help my mom 58F get my sister 32F to either move out or be easier to live with? TLDR, my widow mom is too patient with my job hunting sister while she actively drives her insane, and I want to help my mom get her to agree to pair therapy or to an ultimatum to make her move out. I don't live with them, I live across the ocean, and I'm dealing with my own mental physical struggles. Incoming long story. So 3.5 years ago, my dad passed away. A few months later I left the US for Germany, and my older sister had already lived across the US, leaving my mom late 50s living alone. My mom is an extrovert and kept complaining she was lonely. Back then, my sister and I kept telling my mom she should get a dog or something. She said she didn't want the responsibility and restriction of freedom to travel, and found ways to make and meet with friends and neighbors, and she started therapy as well, and honestly, I was proud of her, and things were looking up. She even visited me in Germany last July and we had a lot of fun together. I should add that my mom is originally from Germany and she even considers moving back here. Sometimes I would love it if she did because honestly, who chooses the US over Germany? Bad life decisions, but more on that later. Then, everything changed last August when my recently laid off sister moved in with my mom. My sister is a hypochondriac who is still very scared about COVID and, although my mom and I are still somewhat cautious, she makes my mom super paranoid about that, affecting her social life, and to add to that, she has a bunch of food allergies my mom has to be careful about as well. But the worst thing is that my sister has the personality of a TikTok addict and she's always talking to people in a bullying, condescending, holier-than-thou way. My sister actually didn't talk to me for 2 years until this April due to our differing political views. She's hyper-political and always has to tell people they're wrong, too. She can't ever keep the peace and be diplomatic. Anyways, living with my sister is a nightmare. I did it for 6 months before moving to Germany, so I should know. She leaves food and clothes everywhere, doesn't take the trash out, and if I dared to complain she said I didn't have the right to as a guest in her home. Well, now she's the guest in my mom's house as a guest herself, but she acts the same. My mom also has only one car, and my sister doesn't want to invest in her own, and so my mom always drives her around, or my sister drives herself to places, but often without even notifying my mom beforehand. What if my mom needs the car? Unfortunately, they live in a car-dependent area. My sister is also always holed up in her room sleeping or on social media. She is looking for a job, I'll give her that, but it's been over a year now and she's had multiple short-term contracts, so I don't get why she hasn't moved out with the money yet. She also refuses to openly communicate about this stuff, thinking we're going to use it against her somehow. But when I lived with her she made me present weekly on a whiteboard what jobs I applied to. I literally only found out today that she is currently doing another contract and she called me a weirdo for not knowing, as if I could know if she didn't tell me. All she does is use internet meme talk and gotchas when arguing. She's mentally a teenager. She also likes stuff publicly on LinkedIn about stuff like how employers are mistreating employees, and engaging in threads about politics who would want to permanently hire her when she seems like someone who would stir up at work instead of keeping the peace. She is not easy to get along with. My late father and her were not on good terms for years leading up to her death, and she's lost so many friends because of minor differences. She is not a reasonable person. My friends who I've told about her think she acts like a bully and a narcissist. Which is ironically what she accuses my father of having been. Also, should note that my sister wants a fully remote job, like she previously had for the better half of a decade. So that makes it even harder for her to find roles. She literally will not do hybrid because of her COVID paranoia. Let's go back to my father. To be fair, he was a bit of a narc, and was super controlling. He was over-involved in our education, especially mine as the younger sister, because my older sister disappointed him, so there was more pressure on me to not be like her. He was also over-involved in my mom's life to the point of making all big decisions for her. Heck, they married after 6 months, while my mom was temporarily being an au pair in the US, and she didn't tell her parents about it and was unresponsive to phone calls for a while. I just am thankful my mom didn't run into any worse guys, because she gives off "I can't make my own choices, someone please teach me what to do" energy. She's constantly asking my dad's brother for help now in place of my dad. Even for the smallest things. She's really anxious and barely ever makes her own decisions, which is why living without him is so hard for my mom. Anyway, my mom pays for my sister's food while my sister pays for her therapy $200 per session, which probably doesn't even help at this point after like 10 years and still being the massive she is in random impulse online purchases. My sister always exaggerates with how much food she gets and eats at once. Since she has allergies, she is paranoid about packaged goods and buys ingredients to make stuff herself. She'll buy huge bulk packs without considering my mom's house size. My mom was annoyed that my sister planted stuff in her garden without asking, and that she's always putting expensive snacks, the ones she trusts, in the shopping cart at the grocery store. And the pantry is so full of food you can't find anything, and there is something going bad every day that they forgot they even had, or they buy things twice. Then my sister has the gall to go on about how she doesn't do food waste LMAOO. Also, speaking of expenses, my sister is recently trying to sell a bunch of stuff in the house she doesn't need, which is cool, but she donates all the money to charity instead of using it to save up to move out. Now we're getting closer to the dog part. My sister got herself an emotional support dog a year before moving in with my mom, so she brought him along, of course. My mom was annoyed that he was scratching up the leather and eating things and barking, and always complains that my sister doesn't pay enough attention to him and she has to take him out for walks and play with him, etc. My mom works from home so she can usually do it, but it's my sister's responsibility. My mom is always telling me she hates living with my sister and would actually prefer being alone again. Then my sister tells her, no, you're lonely and you should appreciate I am here, which I find so manipulative. My mom recently quit therapy because she said it didn't help and costs too much, which I found untrue. Actually, she seems a lot more mentally stable, at least around the topic of my dad's death, and her insurance actually pays a lot of it. My feeling is that, and my mom agreed with me, my sister and her need to do pair therapy so that they can establish rules and boundaries in the household. I told my mom she has to set that as a condition for my sister to be able to keep living there, but my mom is too nice and won't bring that up with her. She just asks if they can do it, and my sister is like, lol, no mom, you need to work on yourself first, which reads as I will not change and I expect mom to adapt to me only. In the meantime, my sister has started walking neighborhood dogs for pay, and she constantly tries to play hero and save any stray dogs she finds. Once she brought one home and asked my mom if they could keep it, and she's made my mom stop on the roadside before to try to save animals she sees there. I should add she's a vegan. When I lived with her, she constantly commented stuff like, gross, you're eating rotten flesh, and had rules about what I could eat while she was in the room. My mom has constantly refused my sister's pleas to please get another dog, and for good reason. Since her house is small, it's littered with dozens of dog toys on the ground and my sister's stuff in the garage, including an entire half-shelf worth of N99 masks. When I bring up how much space is used up by my sister's stuff, my mom says, well, it's okay. She promised she will take it with her when she moves out. Which when? When will she move out? That is a BS possible future scenario excuse my sister uses to keep piling stuff up in the present moment. Then they have the nerve to harass me to get rid of my stuff, which is a small fraction of what my sister's takes up. Heck, the garage barely has space for the car anymore, and my mom always used to say she can't stand people whose garages are so full and she never wants to have that. But she's been forced into this. My sister literally bought a dog grooming table. Who does that? Just use a normal table or go to the pet shop. FFS. So much space taken up. She's been so patient with my sister, to the point of sometimes crying out of frustration to me on the phone. While my dad was still alive, he said to me and my mom that he would never be able to live with my sister because of how she is. I constantly remind my mom that dad would have brought his fist down by now. She is being walked all over because she's too nice. My mom's parents agree with me on this, and so do my friends. She's making my mom an anxious mess who can't think straight because she's so busy walking on eggshells to not say something that will set my sister off. When I saw her last month, she looked like she'd aged 10 years. Her eyes looked so tired. Now for the kicker. Out of absolutely nowhere, my sister, who sometimes talks to me now but only when she wants to and only about things we know we won't argue about, texted me this morning saying, guess what? Mom is getting a dog tomorrow, expecting me to be happy? I am livid. Apparently she convinced my mom to get another dog now, just because the dog was born the day after my dad passed and she discovered it the same day she found her own dog. They think it's meant to be. My sister says she will take the dog with her in the future when she moves out if my mom doesn't want it, using the same excuse as with her crap in the garage to ruin my mom's present situation with a promise in the future. Apparently they agreed on getting the dog 3 weeks ago and my mom didn't even ask me what I thought about that. They wanted it to be a surprise, but I smell manipulation by my sister, who probably wanted my mom to only hear her opinion. My sister says the dog is gonna be so good for mom's mental health, but how? They already have a dog. How is one not enough? This will just be more work and money, and it's literally what my mom has not wanted for a year now. I told my mom to please make my sister leave first, then get a dog. This is not what she needs. What she needs is pair therapy and for my sister to leave. My sister is constantly ungrateful and complaining to my mom, while my mom does so much for her. She is ruining her mental health. Thank you for any advice.